welcome everyone to the second annual Progress Palm Beach County Economic Summit. I'm Mary Lou Bedford, and I am the CEO of the Central Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of our chair, John Carter, our board of directors and staff, we thank you for participating today. Although today's event is virtual due to COVID-19, the content for the programs we have today are informative and impactful. And in a few moments, you will hear from an outstanding group of industry leaders. But before we get started, I'd like to take this time to recognize and thank our sponsors. To Amerant, our presenting partner, thank you so much. To Florida Public Utilities, our corporate partner, our community partner, Minto Communities, and our Progress partners, CEO Financial Services and Wellington Regional Medical Center. Thank you all for the support of this event. We truly appreciate it. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce to you one of our executive board committee members and the executive vice president, retail banking manager of Amerant, Laura Trosclair. Laura, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Mary Lou. And thank you for this opportunity. For 40 years, Amerant has developed strong relationships with people and communities of all kinds, and we are eager to create new ones. Flexible and dynamic, we adapt to your specific needs. That's because we can anticipate your financial requirements based on where you are in your personal life as well as the life of your business. We are here for you today and where you plan to go in the future. We are proud to offer you and your business a diverse portfolio of financial solutions to meet your evolving preferences and priorities, and we are always looking for new ways to help you. Amerant believes everyone's journey and goals are different, and our commitment is to support you along the way. Our goal for today's session is to help you stay informed and connected. Amerant thanks the Central Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce for providing all of us this opportunity today. I would now have the pleasure of introducing FPU's Kevin Weber. Mr. Weber was promoted to Senior Vice President of Chesapeake Utilities in 2019. He joined the company in 2010 and since that time has served as President of Florida Public Utilities Company, as well as Vice President of Gas Operations and Business Development. Mr. Weber currently oversees the company's propane operations, combined heat and power operations, mobile compressed neutral gas, utility and pipeline solutions, and business development across the company. Prior to joining the company, Mr. Weber was General Manager of TECO Partners and Director, Marketing and Energy Conservation for Tampa Electric. Mr. Weber is active with American Gas Association and is a founding member of the National Council for Responsible Energy. Mr. Weber has more than 30 years of experience in the energy industry. With that, Kevin?
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate it. And thank you, Mary Lou and the Central Palm Beach Chamber. I know in the best of times, it's not easy to put these types of events together. In an environment like we live today, it's probably even more challenging to do, but what you put together, I think is really going to be impactful and really going to be valuable for folks. For Florida Public Utilities, we've served this area for 96 years with natural gas and another 70 plus with propane. And we always appreciate the opportunity to work with the chamber and support initiatives that go on. It's a critical piece of business and growth in the Palm Beach area. Just a little background on Florida Public Utilities. We're part of Chesapeake Utilities that's based out of Dover, Delaware. We have operations in Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Georgia, and Florida, with the Florida operations being the largest piece of the company. It's over 50% of the overall company, in fact. And then when you get into Florida, our Palm Beach operations are the largest part of our Florida operations. It's our biggest number of customers and our largest number of employees. We've got plant assets in the ground in Palm Beach that well exceed 200 million. And just in the last 5 years, we've put another 100 million in, replacing existing distribution, new distribution, and intrastate pipelines. A lot of that to support the growth that's going on, and in particular, the growth that's being spearheaded by John Carter for Mento out at Westlake. What a great addition that community is going to be to the Palm Beach area. It's really something to see, and we're glad to be a part of it. You know, building energy infrastructure is a critical piece of growth and development for not only residential, but commercial and industrial applications. And natural gas is a really big piece of that. Around the country, you see some initiatives that try and limit some of the infrastructure going in place. And one of the things we did is hire an outside PR firm to do some pretty extensive research. And one of the things that they did in reaching out to folks, and in particular emphasis in Palm Beach, was people overwhelmingly want to have their choice in energy. They don't want to be dictated what they're going to be able to use. And so it's a really, really important piece. The other thing that they're really interested in is renewable energy. And there's a lot of that going on in this state. And one of the things that's a big initiative for us is renewable natural gas. And that's taking ag waste, animal waste, human waste, and landfill methane, capturing it and cleaning it up and injecting it into the pipeline systems. You know, not only is it great to add renewable to the existing pipeline systems, but you capture the methane that is a terrible greenhouse gas. And you also, which is really important for Florida and for Palm Beach, you keep the runoff from going into rivers and lakes and leaching into groundwater, which will improve the quality of life in a really big way. So it's really important to move forward with that. I had the pleasure of spending a little time with this group last week as we were rehearsing, how this was going to go, make sure the technology was going to work. And I will tell you that the folks that are on this panel are really, really good. It's going to be thought-provoking. I think you'll get an awful lot out of it. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Kevin. It's now my pleasure to introduce Alma Fato. Alma Fato is a shareholder with Lewis Longman and Walker Law Firm in West Palm Beach. He is also a member of the Central Palm Beach County Chamber's Board of Directors and chair of the Chamber's Economic Development Advisory Committee. Al has been practicing environmental land use and governmental law in Florida since 1980. He earned his JD from the University of Florida College of Law in 1979 and his BA from New York University in 1975. Al, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Laura, and good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be the moderator of the first panel this morning of the Central Palm Beach Chamber's 2020 Progress Palm Beach County Economic Summit. I'm zooming in from my home in beautiful Wellington, and I'm pleased to introduce our panel on real estate development and the update and outlook of that industry. Our distinguished panel includes Jack Weir of Eastwind Development, Jeff Brophy of WGI Consultants, John Carter of Minto Communities, and Neil Marin of Marin Hunter Codman. I'm just going to take a moment now to give a little bit more detail on the backgrounds of our speakers. Jack Weir is the principal and president of Eastwind Development, LLC. Eastwind, based in Palm Beach Gardens, was founded in 2007 and has developed over 3,000 multifamily rental housing units in Florida. Eastwind has developed conventional market, independent senior, workforce, and affordable rental residential communities. Prior to joining Eastwind, Jack was Senior Vice President of Creative Choice Homes. In that capacity, he was directly responsible for the financing, closing, and development of over 40 multifamily projects involving over 6,000 units in Florida and 5 other states. Before becoming a developer, Jack was an attorney with a major law firm in New York City, and then he got smart and became a developer. He's a graduate of Harvard Law School, attended the University of St. Andrews in Scotland on a Rotary Fellowship, and received a BA from the University of Scranton. He's admitted to bar in Florida, New York, and New Jersey, and he is presently the chairman of the board of directors of the Housing Leadership Council of Palm Beach County and chairman of the Housing Policy Subcommittee of the Economic Council. Jeff Brophy is a member of the Central Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. He's a vice president for the multidisciplinary consulting firm WGI. and oversees land planning, landscape architecture, civil and environmental services. His 20 years of experience in Palm Beach County and South Florida includes all aspects of the land development process, from design and entitlements through to construction. He's a registered landscape architect in Florida, having previously served as state chapter president of the American Society of Landscape Architects. My good friend John Carter is the chair of the board of the directors of the Central Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce and vice president with Minto Communities. John is a 30-plus year veteran of the real estate industry in Florida. Over his career, he has specialized in program management of large-scale development programs and building successful teams to implement development programs of those types of projects. John is also a certified professional planner. His first professional post was with the national engineering company Kimley Horn. After leaving Kimley Horn, John focused his talents as vice president of community development for WCI Communities, where he managed development operations for Southeast Florida. In 2007, John joined Minto Communities as vice president for Southeast Florida. Most recently, John has led development of the Westlake community for Minto, which launched in 2017 and has now grown to be one of the top-selling master plan communities in the state. And finally, Neil Merrin is a commercial real estate expert with a broad background in all phases of commercial real estate work, including investment sales, tenant representation, site acquisition, development consulting, corporate facilities, and industrial facilities. Mr. Merrin's specialty within commercial real estate involves the sale and leasing of office and retail facilities. Over the past 20 years, Mr. Merrin has represented both owners and tenants in over 30 million square feet of property negotiations, representing over $7 billion in real estate transactions. Mr. Merrin is the founder and chairman of NAI Merrin Hunter Codman, a property management company in West Palm Beach, which is currently responsible for managing 5 million square feet of office and retail space. Neil's firm is the largest commercial real estate firm in Palm Beach County. Now, gentlemen, we've seen how the pandemic has affected the economy, not only in South Florida, but nationally. Yet recently, I saw a headline in an article in the Sun Sentinel, Florida Sun Sentinel, stating that Florida's real estate market is booming. So clearly, these economic conditions we've seen through the pandemic are not the same as we faced during the Great Recession in the late 2000s, 2008, 2009, 2010. John, starting with you, why don't you give us your perspective on the current real estate economy here in Palm Beach County?
Thank you, Al, and it's a pleasure to be with this esteemed group with us today, as well as the audience that's joined us. You know, I think you referenced something, Al, with the Great Recession, and I'll try to keep my comments focused here and short. You have to recall back in 05, 06, 07, you know, and thereafter, as we call it, the Great Recession and the lost decade that followed. That was a distinct financial crisis that was built upon some structural problems around the mortgage lending industry. And so with that, there was an oversupply and overbuilt, and to use Alan Greenspan's term, an irrational exuberance, which spilled over into the market. And the effects thereafter are well known. And from a real estate perspective, you know, was practically cataclysmic. Now, fast forwarding to today, and standing in stark contrast to what we saw with the last real estate crash, which, as I said, was more of a financial underpinning. What we're dealing with today is more of a healthcare crisis, if you will. So some of those underpinning structural defects that we saw previously aren't in place today. In fact, there's been federal regulations under Dodd-Frank and a number of financial institution reforms that have really blunted some of those issues that we dealt with last time. But today, we're dealing with the pandemic and COVID and the impact on businesses across the country. I think what's important to realize is that we were fortunate that real estate and construction in particular was deemed as a critical business. And so unlike most, if not all other businesses that were forced into a shutdown and closure, we were able to continue operations. Now, notwithstanding that, there were definite barriers that and issues we had to deal with to accommodate the healthcare aspects, the concerns of the pandemic, and we adapted. And as most real estate firms always do, and so today, and we can kind of get to a broader discussion with the group here on what may be driving some of the facts around where we are today with real estate, going back to the Sun Sentinel article. But today, from a single family home sales perspective, which is my focus on the group today, we are significantly, and I mean significantly, ahead of business plan where we thought we would otherwise be, notwithstanding the pandemic and crisis around COVID. I think it'll be a great discussion we'll have here briefly about what may be driving some of that. But in terms of where we are today, we are significantly ahead of where we thought we would be from a business plan.
Well, that's certainly a positive outlook as far as residential real estate and development. But Neil, why don't you, if you don't mind, why don't you give us your perspective relating to commercial real estate, particularly retail, and how that's been impacted and what the prospect looks.
From a historic standpoint, going back to the Great Recession that John was talking about, that actually had a very big impact on our commercial market, even though it was basically a housing overbuilt crisis, because one of our major industries in Florida is real estate development. It's considered the fourth leg after tourism, agriculture, and I forget what the other, maybe it is the third leg. But in any event, we actually were recovering to full occupancy maybe 3-4 years ago after the Great Recession. It took a long time to reabsorb all the space. What's happened with the COVID-19 pandemic is it has accelerated trends that were coming at us anyway, that were creeping up so slowly we probably didn't see them till it happened now. So recently, you've seen cranes on the skyline putting up high-rise office buildings. You've seen, some expansion of some retail centers and renovation, but trends have accelerated under the stay-at-home orders, the work from home. People are now questioning how much office space they need. Certainly, contactless retail, which does not need brick and mortar that we go into and meet with people, has become the norm. I'm sure most of us have a lot more corrugated boxes going out than we used to into the recycling bin. So I think what we're going to find is a readjustment that's going to happen. The trends that are happening in real estate development for housing are not going to be reflected in commercial real estate. The need for brick and mortar was greatly overbuilt over the last 20 or 30 years. Amazon and Walmart and delivery services have given us a way to shop from home. We don't need to go out. Those trends are going to last past the pandemic because people actually find them convenient. They were the way of the future. I'm not at all suggesting that commercial real estate is a dead business. Actually, this is probably a good thing. We're going to have some price readjustment. We're going to have some availability. We're going to have room for new businesses to grow in Palm Beach County. Repurposing properties on the retail side is going to be a very, very important aspect of the development industry, whether they're repurposed into apartment buildings, distribution points, interesting office space, or more importantly, for those of us who are waiting to get out of our houses, entertainment venues. On the office side, we are in a very, very good position. The housing trend, that you're going to hear about today of massive sales and absorption are wonderful because these are bringing new businesses that will relocate here. People will use office space. They will need doctors. People who are moving here will need services. They'll need accountants. They may even need lawyers. Who knows? So we're actually, whereas 90 days ago we were a little concerned about, people using less office space. We now are seeing that with the huge growth of residential development in Palm Beach County, people moving here from other places because they realize they can be outdoors here 365 days a year. Well, maybe not in September with air conditioning. But we are going to see more and more businesses growing here, expanding and relocating here. And to us, we think that's a fantastic opportunity. It may mean that we don't build a lot of new buildings, but we're certainly going to be reconfiguring them. We're going to be spending tens of millions of dollars reconstructing office buildings. They're going to be cleaner, safer, healthier. People will probably use a little more office space per person than they used to maintain a slight bit of privacy and distance even after the pandemic, because this will stay with us for a while. But I think overall, you will not see a lot of new vertical construction. You will see a tremendous amount of redevelopment within the commercial real estate industry.
Thanks, Neil. And Jack, if you don't mind, why don't you chime in, if you will, and explain or give your perspective on the multifamily and apartment market right now and what the prospect is in that field.
Thank you, Al. And thanks to Mary Lou and the Chamber for hosting this event. As John noted, when the pandemic hit, we have 2 developments under construction right now in Palm Beach County. Our immediate concern was whether we'd be able to continue the construction, and because it was deemed an essential business, we were. There were definitely supply disruptions. There were spot shortages of labor. There were new precautions that had to be implemented to allow people onto the job site. But these delays, I think, have proved to be minor in retrospect. The other concern we had was whether people would continue to pay their rents on the existing portfolios. And for the most part, they have. Our delinquencies are up slightly, but I think the combination of the federal stimulus during the first 4 months of the pandemic and then the improving economy since then have really gotten us through this with less damage than might have been expected under the circumstances. It is markedly different from the Great Recession. After an initial pause in transactions, there's really no dip in land prices. Land remains a coveted commodity and very expensive. Construction costs have really were flat for a little bit and then have resumed. And in certain spot markets like lumber, prices have actually gone up fairly significantly. So there hasn't been any reduction in terms of the cost of production. The one semi-similarity has been on the financing side. Banks are in much better shape going into this recession than they were in the Great Recession. However, they are being cautious. Many of them have portfolio exposure to retail, to hospitality, to energy loans. So they've all boosted their loan loss reserves significantly. So what that's translated into is not an impossibility to get construction financing like there was after the collapse of Lehman in late 2008. But instead, it's tougher. The terms are a little tougher, but it is doable. And in fact, we were able to close on a project earlier this month. So that's all been for the good. I think going forward, as Neil noted, land is a scarce commodity, so redevelopment is going to be a key in terms of that. If you talk to any major planning department in the county, their mantra is going to be mixed use. And the chief opportunity there is going to be the repurposing of retail. It's clear with this accelerated trend towards online shopping that we're overstored. We have too many bricks and mortars. So that type of adaptive reuse is going to be the key going forward. The other point I would make is that we continue to be supported by demographics. We have many new people moving in here and they need housing. So I think going forward, it's our job as a real estate firm to find ways to meet that demand and come up with ways to make our projects work.
Thank you, Jack. And Jeff, from your perspective in the planning and engineering field, how has your business been? Have you guys tapered off or have been keeping busy? What's your prospect?
Yeah, well, good morning, and good thing they don't check IDs at the door because I don't know if I meet the minimum age requirement for this panel. But of course, I'm kidding. I'm the last speaker, so I wanted to make sure everybody was paying attention. I'd like to thank the Chamber for giving me the opportunity to present with such a distinguished group here of experts. So from a design consultant perspective, meaning those of us in the industry of planning, engineering, survey, and associated professions, I mean, we've been incredibly blessed in the fact that we haven't really seen a slowdown at all. Back in March, there were clients that maybe pumped the brake for 30 days to assess their surroundings like most of us. But whatever delay occurred, it was minimal and quickly accelerated over the next few months to make up for it. So even with COVID, the typical summer lull never really came for us, and the pace of approvals and development has sustained itself over the entire year. Just to reiterate a couple things that have already been mentioned, you know, the for sale residential market, single family and townhomes has been doing very well. Home builders they're coming off a successful 2019. Low mortgage rates and a push out of the downtown living. The developers are coming to us, a lot of them saying, we have an open wallet, we need deals. You know, we know in Palm Beach County and Broward, it's even more aggressive due to the limited availability of desirable and developable land. Despite COVID, actually even the multifamily or the rental apartments is the same way. Developers have continued their push into higher densities, especially in the more suburban areas to allow for rental development. And as Neil had suggested, the commercial market is very different. We're seeing prior approvals or developments being amended to either reduce or completely eliminate the amount of commercial square footage to increase residential density. And what you get are these kind of I wouldn't call them mixed use. They're almost quasi mixed use developments. They're not really integrated together, but adjacent to each other nonetheless. So, you know, and over as Jack had just said, here in the South Florida over the last 2 decades, developers have been looking at, at redevelopment options, a lot of times in the form of things like failing golf courses for additional development. But now they're actually eyeing the larger commercial sites. You're hearing things about the Old Boynton Mall, the mall at Wellington Green, all being eyed for repurposing. But residential isn't the only one looking at it. We also have industrial and distribution and flex space that are happy to move into these areas and are keeping us busy with that too. If anything, just from a design perspective in our industry, our worry is on the public side, not necessarily right now, but in 2021, tax dollars keeping municipal capital improvement and road programs are questionable right now from the recession. And with 2020 almost gone here, 2021 is really what we're looking at as a concern on the public side. And we're already seeing it in recent municipal contracts where cities are proactively looking for consultants to reduce rates to the impact of the COVID on their tax dollars.
Thanks, Jeff. So as far as the commercial development that, you guys have been consulting on, has it been more retail, office, or industrial? What's the mix been like?
From our perspective, the majority of the non-residential that we're seeing has been industrial, distribution, and manufacturing. I haven't seen too much commercial office. There's been a few one-offs. But for the most part, it's within the industrial and distribution sector.
If I could add,
yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
please do.
Your audience needs to understand that industrial is the new retail. 90% of the new industrial that's going up are not manufacturing; they're actually logistical distribution facilities in South Florida. The delivery of goods and merchandise to a store, and then you take them home in your car, has changed dramatically. Today, Everything gets delivered to your door directly from the warehouse. Hence, all these retail that we're talking about, the J.C. Penney's and the Brooks Brothers and the other stores that'll be empty, actually that we'll still be able to get the stuff that they sold. It'll just come out of a warehouse instead of out of a store. So that the interesting part is that we would put retail out in front, mix it with our residential, but there's an anathema to mixing our industrial, which is our new retail, with our residential. People don't want to see the trucks. They don't want to see the warehouse. They have no need to go in and browse what's there. And it's going to pose an interesting dilemma as certain municipalities within Palm Beach County say, we don't want industrial, or we want to hide the industrial, but there's a need for it because it's how we're getting stuff done. And it's where our workforce is going to migrate to.
And Neil, if I could add to that point, and clearly this is your domain, but yesterday I saw the article where Amazon announced 1,000 suburban locations to further extend out their distribution network. So I think, you know, Jeff, from a planning perspective and from a municipal governance perspective, those are going to begin to create some pretty distinct issues that heretofore, as you said, Neil, haven't been an issue. But I know Amazon's the outlier in terms of the scale, but they're not the only one, I'm sure.
No, and it's an interesting, Alex, excuse me for jumping on, but it's going to be an interesting place where we have to talk to our politicians and local municipal planners about changing their concept. When you have a property that's zoned for retail and it has a big box in it that's not being used, that's where Amazon wants to be. They want that last mile. They want to be able to, their goal is to deliver an item to you 2 hours after you order it. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is to have it within a few miles of your house. The only way they're going to get to that and not fight with everybody else for residential zone property is to move it into the former retail stores. I mean, alternatively, I don't think it'll work. Mixed use could include distribution in it, but I don't think that's where we're going. I don't think people want to live over a warehouse unless they're in Brooklyn.
So this may be an anomaly, but speaking of Amazon, I just saw they opened up retail space at the Gardens Mall. There's an Amazon store. How do you explain that?
I'm going to touch on that for a second. Amazon's experimenting with a lot of things. They have the wherewithal to do that. The store that they opened, from what I understand, is what they call a 4-star store. It's where items that have 4 stars or more on Amazon, I don't know what that means, are in stock there, and you can go and pick them up instantly. It's a concept that they're trying in order to get people to buy more stuff through Amazon, but still kind of, I want it now. I don't want to wait for overnight delivery. I want it right now. I mean, it's pretty aggressive, but that's what they're doing. They're doing other things. Amazon just opened their first Amazon branded grocery store in New York, which is totally cashless, which is bugging Bill de Blasio terribly. But you go in, you have a code on your phone. It allows you access to the store. You put items in your grocery cart, and then you roll your grocery cart out of the store, and you're billed, because the entire grocery cart is filled with sensors that determines the pricing of every item. There are no people that work there, except the people behind the scenes stocking the shelves. So there's all kinds of interesting things that are all going to have some impact at some point on us. Like I said, when you have as much money as Amazon has right now, you can try a lot of different things.
John, what kind of non-residential development do you see coming in Westlake? Because Minto is overseeing the development of the entire new town there.
Yes, we are, Al. So in its truest sense, Westlake in its entirety is a master plan mixed-use community. So we have approvals in place fully vested for 4,500 homes. And on the non-residential side, we have 2.2 million square feet. Really, sitting here today, we've been absolutely, I don't want to say stunned, but clearly surprised at the velocity that we've been able to work our way through that 2.2 million square feet. As many have heard, we've sold 13 acres to Christ Fellowship to build an 800-acre campus. We're engaged in discussions to build a a new preparatory academy on about 100 acres of property, which will include a 10,000 seat stadium. And so that's just the tip of the iceberg. We've opened a freestanding emergency department with Wellington Regional Hospital, and they have plans to even further develop a medical campus around that. So with that, I think what we have seen, because we have all those master approvals in place, a lot of that underlying controversy, as Neil and Jeff alluded to, really are non-existent. And you want to talk about shovel-ready property. I think a number of major companies and institutions have seen the profound benefit of coming in with little to no angst to deploy whatever it is they need to build. So with that, we've had significant success. COVID, no doubt, has taken a pause on some of the actual construction of that. But when you look at the plans that have been approved and permitted and are on the shelf, waiting for a little bit of recovery to happen, it's quite surprising in terms of where we are today, given that we really didn't launch for sale until 2017 on the residential side and really 2018 on the commercial side. So I think a lot of that speaks to some of the pent-up demand. I think a lot of that speaks to having greenfield, fully approved, shovel-ready property, which in a supply-constrained environment is pretty unique to have right now.
John, if I could add, one of the trends that we're seeing right now is the dispersal of workforce from Central Business District. When you got approval to put all that commercial back in there, one of the ideas, as Jeff will understand, was traffic capture, trying to keep people from driving into downtown and then back out. And thanks to COVID and to the way people want to live today, we are seeing a massive move of office users to the suburbs. Even in the New York area or Chicago area, firms are saying, look, we need to do satellite offices that people can drop into. They don't have to come in, they don't have to commute. Westlake is perfectly situated for future. I know you haven't mentioned a lot of general office use. You haven't seen it yet, because up until now, the trend has been urbanization. COVID has convinced people that they don't need to get in a car and sit in traffic for 2 hours a day. Technology like we're using today allows people to work from various locations and cooperate together. There's still a need for office. Firm JP Morgan just called half their workforce back after a month ago, saying they probably were never going to call their workforce back. They realized we need to interact. We need other ways to meet and share ideas. But I think that Westlake is suddenly going to find itself as a wonderful suburban office location.
Neil,
And I think that's absolutely indicative as an example of that, Neil, why the Palm Beach County tax collector bought a 6-acre site and is building a state-of-the-art building. And really that's our first entree, if you will. I know it's a governmental use, but that notion of being in the suburb and being closer to the population that needs to be served, I think that aligns with some of these private sector uses that are going to flow. And candidly, I've seen an uptick in my phone ringing from office developers. So I think
I'll call you later.
Well, to further clarify Neil's point on that, you're seeing that now in the ag reserve. You put all those rooftops up there. You have these 2 larger commercial centers that were approved, which are really, either restaurants or retail. And so that need for more commercial style office is starting to become an issue. There's a couple of them that are starting out. You can see them kind of out west there along State Road 7, but it's becoming problematic with all the folks out there. They want that service and they want it, within a couple miles. They don't want to go east of the turnpike to get those services, and we just haven't planned for them yet.
I want to shift now for a moment and address the need for housing that's affordable. Jack, you're very much involved in evaluating and to an extent providing workforce housing. Can you comment on that and what the prospect is for workforce housing so that people within the middle class can afford to live here in Palm Beach County?
Sure, Al. I mean, one of the things I was thinking as I was listening to the discussion here is with all the growth in places like Westlake and the Ag Reserve and Avenir, the fact is we haven't really kept up with the population growth. At the Housing Leadership Council, we did an analysis, and from 2010 to 2019, if you looked at the population growth and divided it by the average household size, we should have produced 63,000 housing units. And when you go to the property tax rolls, what was actually added was only 43. So that was a gap of 20,000, and that results in higher housing prices across the board. So couple stats here just to for the audience to keep in mind. More than half the renters in Palm Beach County are what they call cost burden, which means they spend more than 30% of their income just on housing, on rent. On the home ownership side, the median sale price of a home now is $376,000. The median income is approximately 60. So ideally, you would have a ratio of 3 to 1 for housing price to income, and in Palm Beach County, it's 6.3 to 1. So that's a measure of pretty stark unaffordability. What that means is people are having to travel longer distances in order to get to their work. So, you know, you've seen one of the strategies here, which is more dispersal of employment centers out there. But, you know, the net result of not having that type of housing is more traffic and less disposable income and lower home ownership rates. So the question then is, what do you do about it? I mean, you're not going to solve a problem of this scale, but you can take significant measures to address it. The county's approach to date has been to do what they call a mandatory workforce housing program, which is you basically are required to put a certain percentage of workforce housing units in your development or pay into a fund. That has had probably minimal impact in terms of making a dent in it. So what we've really been pushing is what we would call an incentive-based program to really increase the supply. And there's probably 3 main components to it. So one is density. That means that you're going to have a higher density along your commercial corridors. On the for sale side, more use of zero-lot homes, townhomes, villa-type style homes. The second is fee waivers. When I put together a development budget after land, after construction costs, the 3rd largest item is government fees. So that's a combination of building permit fees, impact fees, and utility fees. For years, the county maintained they didn't have the authority to waive impact fees. That's no longer the case. A couple of years ago, the state legislature gave them explicit authorization to waive impact fees for affordable and workforce housing. The other thing is it's important, and we've seen this in other jurisdictions, to come up with a source of gap financing. And what gap financing does is, if you look at workforce housing, what it means is your costs are the same and your income is less because you're taking either lower rents or lower sale prices. So there has to be a way to come up with a way to fill that gap, either by lowering costs, the fee waiver, or lowering the cost of capital. So what the gap financing would do is it would provide a low-cost source of subordinate debt to basically make building less expensive for developers. And in return for this subsidy, they would agree to a deed restriction in which the either the homes or the rental units would be restricted for a certain period of time. So the county was in the throes of, or in the planning process for an affordable housing bond issue when COVID hit. It's been temporarily sidelined due to the public financing issues. But if you take away, one takeaway in terms of workforce housing from this session, we clearly need to come up with a county bond issue for gap financing if we're going to make a significant dent in this problem.
Jack, how would the proceeds from those bonds be applied to address the issue?
So in a typical multifamily development deal, we might do 70% construction loan financing and 30% equity. The equity is expensive money. These are investors that are often looking for returns of 15, 16, 18% IRRs. you would basically substitute a low-cost subordinate loan, might be 1% or 2%, for expensive equity. And by lowering your cost of capital and a required return on the project, you could have lower rents on 20% of the units, 25% of the units, or 30% of the units. Basically, your NOI can be lower because you don't have to provide a return on the same amount of equity. And that's really the way to make a difference in terms of producing a larger number of units in accordance with existing development patterns.
But if I can jump in here, Al,
Yeah,
and
please
I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle here, and I'm not trying to throw a wet blanket on this conversation. I think clearly there is an affordable housing issue that goes hand in glove with the underpinnings of employment that is drivers of what Neil does all day, every day. But when I want to really challenge this audience to pause and think about the scale of the statistic that Jack just cited about the structural imbalance between the need and the gap between the need and the new inventory supply that's being created. And I'm going to throw out an argument that historically, the way that the county has dealt with this from a matter of policy has laid this issue solely at the feet of new construction. And so think about the numbers that Jack just said, right? And you know, of tens of thousands of units that are needed. And so when you talk about the scale and velocity that we need to move at to deal with this issue, keep in mind in 2019, there were only 3,000 new building permits issued in Palm Beach County. So you're talking about, if you're going to move, and not all 3,000 are going to be workforce housing. You know, Jack, you're typically talking what, 10%, 15%, maybe 20% of that may be allocated toward affordable housing type of issues. It'll take you a generation to deal with the problem, if ever. And so I think from a matter of policy, there needs to be a complete relook at this. This is not a new construction solution that needs to be thrown at this problem. I think you need to look at housing inventory, period, be it existing or new. And let me give you just a statistic from the property appraiser's office. In 2018, there were over 30,000 resales, deeds recorded in the county. Here's a statistic that's going to stun some people. Out of that 30,000 homes, new deeds, transactions on existing homes that were recorded, 56%, over 16,000 homes were at a price point of $289,000 or less. And so as a matter of policy, clearly new home construction needs to be part of the solution. It is not the only solution. And I think there needs to be an extrapolation of how you can implement policies to deal with the existing home inventory, to re-energize and reinvigorate that market and make that available as a viable source to provide for affordable housing. This just isn't a new housing issue.
John, I've been making that argument for a number of years. You drive through many of our older communities that are underfunded in government services, where waste pickup and schools are not performing. Those homes have tremendous value. They have good bones, as you say, in the industry. Many of them are boarded up in some neighborhoods. Many of them are vacant. Many of them are investor owned. There's got to be a way to stimulate and recreate the affordability in the existing housing stock that's currently underutilized. Jack, I didn't mean to interrupt you, please.
No, Neil, I think that's a very good point. The other component of this, as we've talked about the land constraints, we have neighborhoods that are in very good locations, and we'll call Northwood and the area north of Northwood and West Palm Beach as an example. And people are reluctant to move there because of concerns about safety, concerns about schools, concerns about decaying infrastructure. And we don't really have the luxury in this county now of having urban blight like that. We really have to invest in these neighborhoods so that they become viable places to live. And there is a lot of housing stock in the area where the Economic Council is working, the whole RISE area up in Northwood. It is, I was surprised to learn that 25% of the units there were either vacant or severely in need of rehab or were otherwise distressed. So part of this bond issue that we're talking about would also be used for major rehabilitation efforts of existing homes. I mean, it's basically providing developers they need the tools they need to provide the housing where it's needed.
Well, also the investment in infrastructure, as you pointed out, safety, road landscaping, municipal services, and schools to relift those neighborhoods back up that have been neglected for so long is an important component. Again, it's not all on the private sector to do this.
Yes, that's true.
Well, I think that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, but I think that's the focus of the bonding effort, is to have some, public money go in and subsidize some of that redevelopment.
Yeah, I mean, there's a challenge here because the Palm Beach County economy has a large service sector and the wages in that service sector are often below the median. So you're not going to solve all of it with a subsidy like that, but by increasing the amount of housing supply, both through rehab and through new development, you at least provide a measure of a way to reduce that, that over amount of demand that's really driving up the housing prices. And you allow people to live closer to where they work. And that's a major improvement in their quality of life. I mean, that means that they can be better parents, better members of the community. I mean, that's one of the intangible benefits of having workforce housing close to centers of employment and schools.
So, gentlemen, we're almost up at our time. We did get one question from the audience. It was directed towards you, Neil, back to the retail commercial. And the question is, have you heard about Amazon grabbing up JCPenney stores from the Simon Group?
Actually, that's probably not going to happen according to the latest industry scuttlebutt. Simon is proceeding with a proposed acquisition of JCPenney along with a couple of other groups, including some that want to seek the brand. Amazon has decided that for the time being, they're better off moving in their own direction on it. So I don't, from the latest I heard in the last 48 hours, the deal with Amazon and Simon is not happening that way. Simon has picked up two other partners to proceed with the acquisition of JCPenney. But it does beg the question, what happens with these big box stores? Do they become an Amazon 4-star in 30% of the space just to keep some proclivity towards retail, and the back become a distribution center? And that goes back to zoning. I mean, can you imagine Palm Beach Gardens allowing an empty Sears store to become a warehouse distribution point along PGA Boulevard? They just don't understand. That doesn't fit with their image of the city. So
well, Sears has been in litigation with Palm Beach Gardens and with the Forbes Mall there for several years now. And
that's why I use the example. I know that from a lawyer's standpoint, you'd bring that up. I happen to have, I was an expert in
I'm not a litigator, but my partners are. So we try to feed.
But in any event, I don't know how we're going to get away with hiding these industrial uses in plain sight. But there'll be a way. We'll figure it out. And in the meantime, as Jeff pointed out, and Jack did also, we were over retail before COVID. I mean, we had too many malls. We already were looking at the fact that, Wellington and Boynton Beach were probably redundancies in their place. There are other retail examples, the Macy's closing its City Place and being replaced with residential. That is a trend that will continue. These locations are good for people to live in. They're convenient. The nature of retail will change. It won't be a place where we go to get goods. It'll go to be a place where we socialize and where we seek entertainment and we seek time out. And, we're living in an age where we're more productive and we have more leisure time. Excuse me. And the leisure time, people like to spend it. They want to go to movies. They want to go to dinner. There was an article yesterday that there's a large mall in Pembroke Pines that they're converting one of the stores into 100,000 feet of entertainment space. They'll have a bowling alley, a restaurant, excuse me, a movie theater, all under one former big box store. That's the future of retail as we know it is going to be social interaction once COVID is conquered.
Well, I think that'll be our closing remark. I think we're at our time, gentlemen. I think we probably could have gone on for another hour or two, but
Al, I would like to add one thing in closing, if I may.
please.
I would
Actually,
like
I'm going
to-
to ask everybody for closing comment.
I just would like the record to reflect that in no way did the three members of this panel use Mr. Brophy's youth and inexperience against him in any way.
That's a very good point. And Jeff, you could use some gray hair, start touching it up. The rest of us, we let it go. But Jeff, do you have any rebuttal there to close?
No, just that it's difficult to have fun sometimes via Zoom. So you have to inject it when you can. So
All right, so Jeff, I got a question for you. Are you wearing pants?
Don't answer that. Don't answer it, Jeff.
I'm not going to move the camera.
Jack, any closing comments for us?
No, I think Neil nailed it. I think experiential retail and entertainment, that's going to be the key to any type of mixed use. And we as multifamily developers welcome the opportunity to develop next to those type of uses or redevelop as the case may be.
Thank you. I'm going to turn the program back to Mary Lou. Thank you, gentlemen. I think this has been a great discussion. We could have gone on for another hour, as I said, but we have time limits. So Mary Lou?
Great. Thank you so much, Al. And thank you all to our panelists. Great discussion today. And as you said, Al, we could have gone on forever, but we really appreciate your thoughts and your comments and a lot for the audience to think about as our future progresses and we see where this all moves to and moves forward to. I also want to thank Al Malfado. Great job moderating the panel today. And Kevin Weber for your remarks earlier from Florida Public Utilities. Thank you once again. And of course to Laura Trusclair from Amerant, our MC for this morning. So we thank you all, audience. We will start our session 2 on tourism at 10 a.m. and feel free to watch the following announcements and commercials that we've provided for you. Thanks again and really appreciate this first session. Great job to all.
It was the right time to look for a new home. Our family got bigger and our space got smaller.
We started looking at our favorite neighborhoods, near great schools and close to where we work too. And after a couple of weeks, we found it.
When I saw that look on her face, I knew there was no changing our mind.
It reminded me of my parents' house, where I grew up.
But like all big decisions in life, we needed some help to make it happen. When I first spoke with Joanne at Amerant, we spent the first 20 minutes talking about the home. As it turns out, she lives in the same neighborhood, so she was excited to share her experience.
Whether you have $1 million budget or a portion of that, my goal is always to make it a great experience. I want to be there every step of the way, facilitating the process.
We had chopped around looking for the right bank, but what convinced us was the accessibility to Amerant's team of experts and their personalized approach in helping us get the home we wanted. This isn't our first home buying experience, but it was definitely the first time we enjoyed the process and actually closed on schedule.
Every individual's needs are truly unique, and because we're part of this community, we're better suited to tailor financing solutions to meet their individual goals. I take pride in what I do. I take pride in helping people realize their dreams.
We're the Shermans and we're happy to be home.
Ask for gas. Ask for flavor. For fast. For rave reviews. Ask for natural gas. Ask for smoother operations. For hurricane ready. Ask for happier staff. Ask 9 out of 10 chefs why they only use natural gas. Ask for thousands in rebates to help you upgrade your commercial kitchen. Ask for better equipment, for efficiency, for savings. Ask for more. Ask for natural gas.
To you and your dreams.
Ask for gas. Ask for reliable, for efficient, for savings. Ask for natural gas. Ask for your dream home. Ask for an easier search for natural gas homes and developments. Ask over 70% of home buyers why they prefer natural gas. Ask for hurricane ready, for higher resale. Ask for rebates on home upgrades you need, want, and love. Ask for lower energy bills, for premium appliances, for luxury comfort. Ask for more. Ask for natural gas.